attached. The notice of hearing is included in the packet. The on-off sale malt beverage license would run until June 30th, 2018. As with any license, the City Council has the ability to issue them basically two criteria: suitable person and suitable location. Chad Grunwald, the owner of Old Lumber Company, met with the police chief after filing the application to talk about what he had planned for this. The chief had requested that a written plan be provided to him. Chad called me on Friday morning this past, saying that he did not have time to get it to the police chief, the information that he wanted, and requested the hearing be continued until our January 2nd meeting. Staff would recommend that the public hearing be continued until June 2nd, 2018. As the hearing was advertised, if there's any person present that wants to comment, I would suggest we allow them to comment and recommend continuing the hearing.
Mike, could I just clarify something? It continued for 2 weeks. That wouldn't be the second January meeting. I was looking at this other part. The request of hearing be continued for 2 weeks. So, if you follow what I'm...
Yeah, with the holiday there, I think is what we're looking for, the January 2nd.
Oh, okay. Not the second January meeting.
January 2nd meeting.
January 2nd meeting. Okay.
Sorry, I probably misstated that.
I shouldn't read that so literal, I guess.
I move we continue this item to the January 2nd meeting in 2018.
Motion a second to continue the hearing till the 2nd of January. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries. Thank you. Item D, consideration of an appeal of the Vermillion Planning Commission's decision granting a conditional use permit. Or we took that off the table. I'm sorry. That one's done. So we'll move to old business and second reading of Ordinance 1365-2017 Supplemental Appropriation Ordinance. And Mike, please.
The City Council adopted the revised budget for 2017 in September of 2017. Since that time, some expenses have taken place that have resulted in the need to revise the budget. I've included in the packet a fairly lengthy memo explaining the changes and why they were made, and I would be more than willing to explain any one of them if somebody had questions. This is a supplemental appropriation ordinance we usually do in December of each year, just as final housekeeping of items that have changed since the budget was adopted. A first reading was held on December 4th, and there's been no changes since. Probably one of the main items, the general fund reserve, would be proposed to be reduced by $19,550 over what it was planned when the revised budget was adopted. Administration would recommend adoption of second reading of the ordinance, and a roll call vote is required.
Council?
Second.
Motion and the second to accept the second reading of Ordinance 1365-2017 Supplemental Appropriations. And Don, if you set the machinery for us, please. So the second reading's been approved. Under new business, item A, Business Improvement District Number 1 board member appointment. There's two actually, and so I'm recommending that we reappoint Don Kenton, and then Greg Huckabee has also shown interest in that. So those would be the two I'd recommend to the council.
Move approval.
Motion a second to approve Don Kenton and Greg Huckabee as members of the Business Improvement District Number 1. Thank you. Item B, city fee schedule. And Addison, are you going to read all of it to us?
Not quite.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is a process we started about 5 or 6 years ago, where annually we present to City Council a comprehensive list of fees that the city charges. It has become a good process for us to provide an opportunity for City Council and staff to review those fees and see if there have been any changes and to make adjustments where needed. As noted in your memo, there are a few changes that are proposed this year, a couple of those being from the Parks and Rec Department. So the co-volleyball leagues and adult men 5-on-5 basketball league have lowered their entry fee per team from $250 to $200 to encourage enrollment participation. And the golf course is now offering $10 per round green fee for junior golfers 12 years old and under, as well as half-price season pass for first-time members. This is with the goal to increase both revenue and membership out at the course without altering the current membership fees. Next on the list is the business recycling collection fee, which is being raised from $10 to $12.50 monthly. This is in part due to the increase in the residential curbside recycling fee back in October, and also in part due to the increased amount of time that the collection process requires to collect from these businesses. Lastly, there are quite a few updates to the fees regarding EMS services, such as reinstating the itemized billing for the use of supplies and an added fee for records release. Questions requiring an explanation for those updates can be directed to Fire Chief Matt Callahan, who is here. Having a comprehensive list of fees provides City Council and staff with a resource that can be utilized when questions of cost are presented. This document also helps the public by providing them with information regarding the dollar amount that is charged for the respective services that are provided by the city. Therefore, following the decision on the above fees, the fee schedule will be updated completely and posted on the City of Vermillion webpage for the community's convenience. The administration recommends approval for the resolution revising certain EMS, Parks and Rec, and business recycling collection fees, the fee schedule detailing all fees set by resolution, and the master fee schedule detailing all fees currently in place.
Thank you, Addison. Any questions for Addison on this?
Does this cover all the fees now? It's all going to be in one document?
Yes, there's in the packet, there's the master fee schedule has all the fees that are currently in place.
So we can go to one place. Fantastic. Thank you.
No problem.
Out of curiosity, when I look at the pharmaceuticals and some of those supplies, I mean, how are those amounts decided? For example, one aspirin is $10.
Fire Chief Matt Callahan, I believe that.
Given how healthcare is such a hot topic nowadays.
Of course.
So to kind of explain the reinstatement of the individual charges for supplies and stuff, 3 years ago when I was hired on, I came in and updated the schedule for fees we had. At that time, insurance companies were not paying for itemized supplies, so we cut out our itemized supplies because we were being told to write them off. This year, when we received our stuff from the billing company as to what Medicare, Medicaid, and Blue Cross Blue Shield will pay, what we find is those Medicare and Blue Cross still write off the individual supplies, but Medicaid and all other private insurance companies are now paying for itemized supplies. And so what the insurance company, or our billing company, told us is that basically what we're doing is we're leaving money there that isn't being collected. As far as how are those charges set, we looked at different other agencies and what they were charging, stuff from our billing company that was received, and then typically what you do is you look at what Medicare, or not Medicare with individual supplies, but Medicaid and other insurance companies, what they're paying, and then you typically go up 25% because they're going to tell you, well, we'll only pay you this much. Well, then you're covered by what you're being charged or what you're purchasing those itemized supplies or pharmaceuticals for.
So thank you. We're still basically in a break-even mode.
We are. I
We're
mean,
not in this to generate money.
yeah, the supplies, really, a lot of the recourse for going back and now charging for supplies is the cost of supplies. I can tell you from the time I was hired 3 years ago till now has gone up about $7,500 a year. And that's just what it's, the cost of doing business with medical supply companies. So this will help us recoup that cost that we're expending to purchase those supplies ahead of time to make sure the ambulances are stocked.
Thank you. I'm grateful for the explanation.
Further, Steve, please.
Do you anticipate that we will make more than the cost of the supplies that we're buying? I mean, I trust you've looked at what we...
It's hard to say. You know, that the intent is not to, you know, make that portion the profitable portion to where the goal is to break even, Steve, with the supplies. You know, of our payer mix, it's about 48% that are paying for itemized supplies at this point, which can fluctuate year to year, but that's 2017, it looks like about 48%.
Could I ask you about one specific?
Sure.
The EpiPen is $400.
Yes.
That seems awfully expensive for, is that just a typical, is it an expensive?
That is our cost, $400 for an EpiPen.
Wow.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Matt, while you're up there,
Yes, John.
if you wouldn't mind sharing with the council the partnership that we have with Sanford Vermillion with respect to the medicines.
Sure, absolutely.
Because it's an important point that I think shows the collaboration in the community that we're not stocking shelves and throwing stuff away, so I'll let you.
Correct, absolutely. So with our pharmaceuticals, one of the things we did about 3 years ago is instead of stocking medications in the station, we actually went to Sanford Vermillion. We said, what can you do to help us as far as medications go? Because we're throwing away stuff that's expiring, and medications are expensive. And so what we ended up doing with them is we kind of, I'll call it, entered into a partnership with them to where they supply us our medications. Obviously, we're still billed for them. And then 60 days prior to them expiring, we actually go back to the hospital with them. They take them, put them into the hospital to be used within 60 days. And if something's expired, we get charged a reduced rate, what they get charged to return it to the company. And so we actually saved money by doing that, and we're not stocking large quantities of medications, which is can be a control issue at you know, having them at your fire station. So I think we saved money doing that, and we also helped control our stock a lot better by doing that.
Steve, I might just note that I have diabetes medicine that until I meet my deductible for the year, it's $480 for 5 pens. Once I met it, it's $80. So I don't know if that...
Yeah, the cost of some of the pharmaceuticals, as you can see, there's probably about 4 of them on there that are $70 to $400, and that's just because of that certain type of medication. And unfortunately, you know, there's not a whole lot of off-brands out there, or the off-brand isn't available to us, and so we're stuck buying the name brand drug.
Okay.
Second?
Motion is second to approve the city's fee schedule. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries. Thanks.
Thank you, Mayor.
Public Safety Center appointment. Mike, please.
Well, you had a little background on the Public Safety Center at noon today, talking about in January of 1988, the city entered into an agreement with the county for construction and use of the Public Safety Center that provides for a board that is to resolve any issues that would come between the entities that use the board, being the county and the city. The board requires that as a 3-member board with 3-year terms. The current members are Bruce Plate, whose term is expiring, Dave Teasy, whose term is expiring 2018, and Bob Fuller would expire in 2019. The Sheriff Howe and Police Chief Betson are recommending the reappointment of Bruce Plate for a term that would end in December of 2020. The county will be acting on the reappointment of Bruce Plate to the Public Safety Board. One other thing to note, as far as we know, the board has never met.
Nice committee you hit me on.
Administration to recommend the reappointment of Bruce Plate to the Public Safety Center Board.
Council? Motion and a second to approve the recommendation of the Public Safety Center Board appointment of Bruce Plate to continue on. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. Motion carried. Item D, commercial collectors license renewals. Mike, please.
The ordinance requires the approval by the City Council for the issuance of commercial collectors licenses. We've had reapplications from Lauren Fisher Disposal, Lauren Fisher owner, Fisher's Disposal LLC, Lonnie Fisher operator, Arts Garbage Service, a division of Waste Connection, Vermillion Garbage Service, Marty Johnson owner, Independence Waste, K&P Services Incorporated owner. Part of the ordinance also requires the entities indicate if they've had any ordinance violations in the city during the past year. The police chief done a report which is included in the packet, which lists any incidents that they've had with the licensed haulers during the past year. It was reported on April 16th, Independence Waste vehicles was cited for speeding. I had made a contact with Representative in Independence Waste and talked to Kay Kramer, who stated she was not aware of the speeding citation, but that their policy is to go over that with the drivers as they want them obeying all traffic laws. I know they've had a changeover in some of the office management down there at Independence Waste. The annual fee is $300 per license, and administration recommend the City Council review the information and determine whether to renew the licenses for 2018.
Thank you, Mike. Council?
Second.
A motion and a second to renew the commercial collectors licenses as presented. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries. Item E, Labor and Finance Committee report. Kelsey, please.
So during our budget meetings, there was some discussion about approaching the way that we fund outside agencies and maybe getting a little more guidance on the amount that we would put towards that. The Labor and Finance Committee met on several occasions and explored some different ways to do that. There's a report attached that kind of goes through the historical review that we did on the percentages that have been spent in the past of the total budget. Ultimately, we divided that funding into 4 different categories, or 2 different categories with 2 subcategories that would be our BBB funds and our general funds, and then outside agencies that don't have an association with the city but are essentially applying for a grant, and then city legislated agencies that have a closer tie to the city. Either the program is run through the city, we appoint board members, etc. And so it's sort of a long report, and hopefully you've had a chance to look at it, but it gives you some of the historical percentages that we've spent in the past, and the hope would be that when budget time comes around again, we can use those as guidance to have a better idea of how much we really do have to spend and what would be within the norm. I think staff is continuing to work on exactly how that will be presented during budget, as well as possible updates to the application that would guide us, but this at least gives us a range in which to work with. So if there are any questions.
I have a question.
Tom.
Surprise, surprise.
You were there.
I'm curious to know if, because we had a lot of discussion about this, how, when we come up with these percentages, I understand we only have a certain amount of money in the budget, and we have to divide it among a number of people. But do we always base percentages on not just the amount we have, but on historic percentage amounts? But I would like to know basically where does need come in, which changes and varies from year to year to year.
I think in our discussion, the need would be where we would have discretion, but the ranges allow us to know how much discretion, I guess, would still be within an acceptable range. So for example, if we were looking at giving additional funding to a certain agency because there is a great need, we could say, actually, in looking what we've got recommended, we could add another, we could meet their entire proposed allocation without going outside of that historical norm. Or maybe we would go a little bit outside of it, but we've decided it's worth it. But at least it gives us some kind of idea of where we are, because that seemed to be sort of a challenge during the budget process this year, is we didn't even know really what would be normal or what would be outside of the norm. And so the range is just a place to start, that we would still have a lot of discretion in how we would use that.
The range provides that flexibility in making those, okay.
Right, absolutely. So I think it would actually allow us to better meet those needs, because we would know what we had to spend and still be fairly responsible and within the historical norm.
Comments? I'm impressed with the efficiency of a committee that meets at 7:30 and is done at 7:29. Any further discussion on the council? A motion and a second to accept the report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries. Item F, Policies and Procedures Committee report. And Rich, please.
I couldn't meet the speed of the previous report, but this, first of all, I want to thank the committee, because we got a lot done, and this has been something that's been in discussion for quite a while. Basically, after all is said and done in the several meetings we've had, the changes we're proposing consist of 4 things. Number one, we're going to ask for us an application giving us more definition as to what the proposed cell tower, what they want, and why they need it. Then we've also added a zone so that we could include the golf course and the parks and any new acquisitions. And I'm sorry, I don't remember the acronym, NRC, which stands for
Natural Resource Conservation.
Thank you, Natural Resource Conservation. And the other thing we've added is a dynamic, is the best way to put it, dynamic tower location based on the type of tower or camouflaged or stealth tower you want to put. If it's a flagpole, you could probably get by with a 20-foot radius. If it's something larger than that, your radius would be bigger, but it'd be dynamic depending on where the location is and what was agreed upon as far as what it would look like. And it would fit the needs and appearance of the neighborhood. So, and then we were so efficient, we had time to look at the changes of proposed road closure procedures and some additions of things we should have had before, and it was good that we looked at them and made these recommendations prior to anything happening. And then once again, we talked about chicken coops. But that was discussion only. So thank you, everybody. That was it.
Thank you, Rich. Pleased with
Questions?
your committee's work. John, what would it take to include like NRC into what we currently have?
So they'll probably, Ordinance 1355 had language that really was just addressing the distance and some items like that. So you'll probably see a revised ordinance. Will obviously have a different number on it. It'll be 2 different sections. One that will be addressing the fall zone that was mentioned, and then the second one would be a second subset, and there would be to address adding NRC as a zoning category. And so those. It won't be a particularly lengthy ordinance, but you'll see that our hope is, or the discussion was that day, to bring that to your meeting on January 15th. And so staff is working on that, and we will hopefully get a draft of that out to you prior to the 15th, so have a chance to look at it and review it.
Okay, thank you.
So, John, so the 300 feet in the ordinance regarding residential use remains? No?
So where, if I find a copy of it here from last time, the language that would, last time you might recall we had section 155.075, which was the existing language in our ordinance, which talks about the minimum, subsection A, the minimum distance of 300 feet. That language would remain, but the exception language, which you had considered last time, that's where you would have, it'll be different wording underneath the exception, and then the NRC is an earlier section of this code.
And so it still goes through the process before it gets to the city council. I mean, the public hearing processes that are already in routine.
So to make sure I'm answering the question that you're asking, if we have an actual application or the process to change the ordinance?
Both.
Okay, so the way this is set up, if we have an actual application, if this is approved and you have an actual application, it would come to the city council to consider the design or what it might look like. And that's where the council would weigh in on that, and that would be location specific. And then all telecommunications towers have to go to the planning commission for a conditional use permit. So it'd still be, as you saw earlier this year, you'd still have those two steps in it. Changing the ordinance would also have to go to the planning commission because these are both part of the zoning code as well. So it probably, now that I think about it, will not be part of the January 15th city council meeting because we will need to advertise that and place that before the planning commission in January at the earliest. But we'll at least get hopefully a draft to the council so you can take a look at it here in January.
I don't suppose anybody want to add historic districts in there too, but I guess we'll talk about it. Thank you. John?
Further discussion?
Move we accept the report?
Motion and a second to accept the report of the Policies and Procedures Committee. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries. Item G, combined election agreement. Mike, please.
The city ordinance sets the election date to correspond with the June primary on the even-numbered years for city council seats. The combined election makes for a greater voter turnout for the city election instead of holding a city election in April and the primary in June. The county is willing to combine the election with the city. The state statute provides for a combining election and encourages entities to work out who's responsible for each. And so that's where we put together the election agreement. The city in the past has entered into election agreements with the county. The city election is to cost what the city is being asked to contribute toward the election to the county primary to be $2,800 for 2018, and this would be the same as what it was in 2016. If the city was to hold an election on their own, the last one we had was the referendum, the beverage markup. With paper ballots, it cost over $3,500. The combined election agreement would cost the city $2,800 and have the citizens going to the polls one time. Administration would recommend approval of the combined election agreement and authorize the mayor to sign. This would be for our June 5th primary election, which would also be the city and the school district.
Questions on the council? And then the canvassing is done by June 11. Is that the idea?
Yes.
We have a week or so to...
Each entity, the law is different for each entities. I think for the primary, they have 3 days after the primary to complete theirs. The city and the county the city has 1 week, and the school district has at its next school board meeting. So with the election on Tuesday, the county usually meets on Thursday and does their canvassing. I guess I didn't look at the calendar completely to see if we would have to have a special meeting. Yeah, we would, because the 3rd would be a meeting, and so we'd probably have to have a special meeting probably on Friday or sometime early on Monday, because the school board meeting would be that off meeting if they would have to canvass that next election.
Okay. Any comments or questions for Mike? Second. Motion a second to renew the combined election agreement. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries. Item H, resolution to prepay special assessment bond. And again, Mike, please.
The city council issues special assessment bonds to pay for improvements that are assessed to benefiting property owners. After the project is complete, a special assessment bond is prepared that is sold, and the electric utility has purchased these bonds as an interfund loan. This cuts down on, we don't have bond issuance costs. bond counsel fees, that these costs have to be passed along to the property owners. The city issued the Series 2015B bonds for $316,000. These were for the concrete surfacing and other streets improvements on North Norbeck from Roosevelt to East Clark. This project was a delayed assessment where the city picked up the interest for the first 2 years and then to the property owners. It started in April of 17. In July 2016, a prepayment of $129,000 was made, and in May of 17, a second prepayment was made, $157,000, which left a balance of $29,000. The property owner came in and paid that $29,000 that was owed plus interest. As such, we have the funds on hand. As the bond was paying interest to 3.5% to the electric utility, and we can't earn near that much by investing it, we're recommending that the council adopt the resolution to authorize the prepayment of the special assessment bond in the remaining balance of $29,132.14 plus interest. This will pay off this bond and have our special assessment debt service fund and the electric utility funds repaid and the bond canceled. I'd recommend the adoption of the resolution to authorize the prepayment of the bond plus the accrued interest.
Thank you, Mike. Council? A motion and a second to allow the prepay special assessment bond. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries. Item 9A, annual supply of water and wastewater chemicals. Shane, please.
Thank you. Annually, we receive bids for the water and wastewater chemicals, specifically the lime and the soda ash. This year, we opened bids on December 13th. The bid summary has been attached with a 5-year history for you guys' review. We sent bid documents out to 11 prospective bidders this year, and we received 7 bids, 4 of them for the lime and 3 of them for the soda ash. 2 of the lime bids were received from Pete Lean & Sons. One bid that they sent they knew did not meet specifications. That's bid number 1, and then they included one that did meet specifications. They had a letter that explained that they wanted to give us an alternative option for lime, so that's what the bid 1 was. We took that low bid and compared it to the low bid that met specifications and figured out that if we did go with Pete Lean & Sons, it would actually end up costing us more money in the long run to successfully treat the water. For that reason, we would recommend rejecting Pete Lean & Sons bid number 1 and award the contract to Graymont LLC. Funds for these chemical purchases have been budgeted for by the water and wastewater budgets. Administration recommends rejecting the low bid received from Pete Lean & Sons, bid number 1 for proposal 1, and awarding that proposal number 1 to Graymont LLC at a cost of $162 per ton for a total of $81,000, and awarding proposal number 2 for the soda ash to the low bidder BHS Marketing LLC at a cost of $308 per ton for a total of $146,300.
Thank you, Shane. Comments on the council? Questions? Anybody want to make a motion? Okay. Do we have a second? Yep. Motion a second to take the low bid on both. All in favor signify.
Not
The ones they didn't reject.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, the recommended, excuse me. I'm sorry.
Quick question. I take it, I mean, it didn't meet specs, so therefore we don't even have to bid on it, do we?
Excuse me?
The first bid that they
Yep.
said it doesn't meet specifications, so
Right.
we can reject it for that for no other reason.
Absolutely. Yep. We just figured that because it was because it is cheaper, I did compare the two to just see would it end up saving us money in the long run, and but it does not.
So, but technically, we can just simply reject that one.
Absolutely. Yes.
Now let me see if I can get this right. We've approved what he recommended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries. Thank you. Next, Fire Department's air compressor and fill enclosure. Jose, please.
Thank you. The fire department's air compressor and enclosure were scheduled to be replaced in 2018. These items were presented to the city council during the 2017 budget hearings. The equipment that's to be replaced was purchased in 2001. State statute allows municipalities to purchase equipment that costs less than $50,000 without bidding. Staff contacted a couple of firefighting suppliers. These were Feld, Fire, and Danco to get quotes for the equipment to be replaced. For similar equipment, the Feld Fire quote was $51,085, while the Danco quote was for $45,000. The 2018 Equipment Replacement Fund includes a budget of $34,000 to replace this equipment. This obviously leaves a shortfall of $11,000 when compared to the Danco quote of $45,000. Depending on other purchases and surplus sales, the Equipment Replacement Fund might have to be amended during the 2018 budget sessions. Administration recommends awarding the purchase of the fire department equipment to Danco for $45,000. And to allow the city manager to sign a purchase order for the equipment.
Thank you, Jose. Questions from the council?
I move approval of awarding to Danco and allowing city manager to sign the purchase order.
Motion is second to approve the fire department's air compressor and fill enclosure bid. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item is John, the city manager's report.
And I'm quite certain that Brad followed all the speed laws to get here in time from the North Sioux City Council meeting. So at this time, I'd like to invite up Brad Wilson of South Dakota Municipal League Workers' Compensation Fund for a presentation.
Thank you, John. And yeah, I was within the limits, I think, so I was okay. But yes, thank you for moving me up and having me on the agenda tonight and having me here. I've met several of you, if not all of you, at some point at different municipal league functions. But my name is Brad Wilson. I'm the administrator for the SDML Workers' Compensation Fund. And we are celebrating our 30-year anniversary this year. And as part of that, I'm making my rounds visiting our members presenting plaques. But just a little bit of history first. The SDML Work Comp Fund was formed in 1987. And in that first year, we had 52 members that joined the fund. And all we do is provide workers' compensation coverage for your employees, for the city of Vermillion. And that's just for public entities, cities, counties, conservation districts. And we are endorsed by the South Dakota Municipal League and the South Dakota Association of County Commissioners. So fast forward 30 years, we now have 454 members. And the reason for my visit tonight is to present the city of Vermillion with a 30-year membership plaque. And of those 52 members, Vermillion was one of the first 52 members in that very first year to join the SDML Work Comp Fund. So on behalf of the Board of Trustees, the Municipal League sponsoring organization, and the other 453 members, I would, if you don't mind, I'd like to approach the mayor, and if you'd like a photo op, but to present the plaque and congratulate the city for their membership.
Well, thank you, Brad.
If I may approach.
Clear it so you don't get tackled by security.
All right. Thank you. All right. Back to Sioux Falls. So I'm safekeeping after I put that in. All right. I don't know, Mike, do you or John, when do you want to keep tabs on this? Thank you very much. Congratulations. Thank you. Thanks, Brad. This side Thank you all.
Thank you.
Have
Appreciate
good rest of the year.
Now, John.
Thank you. Just a couple of items. Just a reminder that our survey for the Bike Master Plan is ongoing. It is on the website, bikevermillion.com, and you can also find it. It's available through the city's website as well. As they gather information, it looks like they're probably getting back together again, the committee in January, first part of January. So we appreciate all the input. want to say we had around 200 surveys completed last I heard about it, so the more that we can get, the better the information is. Hopefully, you all noticed as you came into this City Hall today, we have finally completed this project, well, at least in terms of getting them here. We'll have 6 new banners that will be placed on Cherry Street, 6 different designs of new banners that will be placed on Cherry Street next spring after we get through the winter weather. We do have 4 of them which are hung temporarily in the City Hall lobby that are available, and then the other 2 are available for council viewing in the conference room next door. We're looking forward to completing that project and hanging them up next spring. Just a reminder, city offices are closed next Monday, the 25th of December, and then the following Monday, January 1st of 2018, for the respective holidays. So the next city council meeting, as was referenced earlier this evening, will be on Tuesday, January 2nd, instead of on Monday. And seems kind of odd to say, but nonetheless, our Christmas tree collection site is open, and we do accept real trees there. So if you've had a real tree and you're going to be out of town here, or want to get rid of your tree before our next meeting on January 2nd, when I'll remind you yet again, the site is the same it has been in many previous years, the south side of Broadway Street, just west of Dakota Street. We do ask that you remove the plastic you might wrap the tree in for transport, as well as lights and decorations. I guess you can leave the presents if you'd like. And we will we'll keep that open until January 15th of next year. And this last one, I really hate to say, but just a reminder that sidewalks are to be cleared 24 hours after the end of a snow event. There's, I guess, a possibility of that happening. And just a reminder also that snow should be stored in your property, not across the street in the neighbor's yard without their permission, or piled up in the street in front of the neighbor's property. And if you do move it across the street, windrows of snow should not be left in the street. Fortunately, I'm afraid that we'll have to deal with that this winter, but nonetheless, it's an annual reminder.
Yeah. Any comments or questions for our city manager? Seeing none, we'll turn to our invoices payable. Anyone want to stump Mike or try to stump Mike? A motion and a second to pay our bills. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries. We have no consensus agenda, but before we adjourn, I'd just like to wish everyone, not only on the council, but within our community, to have a happy holiday season and safe travels wherever you might be going. Steve? Steve? Motion and second to adjourn. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries. Thank you.